Arsenal Football Club is one of the biggest clubs in England and in the world of football. They are a team that is rich with history, especially when their most iconic manager, Arsene Wenger, led the Gunners to an invincible season, going unbeaten for the entire Premier League season. Till this day, they are the only English club to achieve that status. Arsenal have also had some icons of the beautiful game play for them. Players like Patrick Vieira, Dennis Bergkamp, Robert Pires, and of course the man himself, Thierry Henry. People thought Arsenal would continue their rise under Arsene Wenger and dominate. However, the opposite happened, and the invincible title would be the last that they won. Players from their invincible season started to get sold in order to fund the construction of the brand new Emirates Stadium. Limits were put in terms of the transfer budget for new arrivals. The board opted for a youth approach, with Arsene Wenger given the task of developing young players and turning them into stars. The plan actually worked at the beginning, as many young stars were developed at the Arsenal. Cesc Fabregas, Robin van Persie, Jack Wilshere, Theo Walcott, and Samir Nasri. However, Arsenal kept slipping behind the big teams season after season. With the downward trend, a lot of the star players that Arsenal developed started leaving the club and joining bigger teams in search of silverware. Fabregas went to Barcelona, Van Persie went to Manchester United, and Nasri went to Manchester City. Meanwhile, the other young stars had a massive dip in form and looked like the shadows of their former selves. As the gap between Arsenal and the big teams became bigger, the board had to do something, which they did. They decided to give Arsene Wenger the checkbook and spend big. Star players like Alexis Sanchez, Petr Cech, and Mesut Ozil were bought in. Everyone thought Arsenal were back. However, this still did nothing to solve the situation. On top of this, many other poor signings were made. Mustafi, Kolasinac, Mohamed Elneny, Rob Holding, and the list goes on. The gap between Arsenal and the bigger teams was getting larger and larger every season, with Arsenal in the 16-17 season finishing outside of the top 4 for the first time in 20 years. No Champions League football for the Gunners. The blame was put on Arsene Wenger. However, Arsene tried his best to take his beloved Arsenal back to glory. However, the damage was just too big for him, as at the end of the 17-18 season, Arsene Wenger retired and said goodbye to Arsenal. The new season started and Unai Emery was appointed as the manager. Emery was a winner as he won trophies at Sevilla and at PSG. Many Arsenal fans wanted a fresh start, and they believed Emery was the guy for that fresh start. However, there are still some fans questioning that whether Emery is the right man to take Arsenal back to glory or not. Emery in his first season led Arsenal to a 5th place finish, a disappointment seen to the fans as they missed out on top 4 once again. However, there was still hope because Emery guided Arsenal to a Europa League final. Win the Europa League and you're in the Champions League. Arsenal had the advantage as Unai Emery was a specialist when it came to the Europa League. However, they got trashed 4-1 by London rivals Chelsea. Going into Emery's second season, big money was spent as Arsenal signed Kieran Tierney, William Saliba, Dani Ceballos, David Luiz, and star signing from Lille, Nicolas Pepe. It was seen as a top window from the Arsenal, and many fans and even rivals predicted Arsenal would now finally kick on and get top 4. However, in November, Unai Emery was sacked and the club was sitting 8th in the table, 8 points behind 4th place. The club was in a huge mess, as the situation every day seemed to get toxic at Arsenal. Rumors went around of a divided dressing room, but mainly, the fans were fed up with the club and the board as there was no project happening and the club was falling downwards every season. Something had to change, and in December 2019, Mikel Arteta was appointed as the new manager of Arsenal Football Club. Arteta was a good player during his playing days, however many doubts were raised about his managerial credentials. He had no previous experience working as a manager, and his only experience was being the assistant of Pep Guardiola. Arsenal was his first managerial job. He was basically being thrown into fire without any sort of protection at all. With Arteta being appointed, the expectations of the fan base were pretty low as the season was already done for them and they just wanted to see some sort of improvement under Arteta. Although Arteta's time started pretty slow, Arteta picked up his first win against Manchester United on New Year's Day, beating them 2-0. And many fans were excited. The season eventually came to a halt due to the COVID-19 and lockdown. However, when the Premier League resumed again, Arsenal had a very good end to the season. Although their final league position was disappointing as they finished 8th, Arsenal made it all the way to the FA Cup final, where they faced London rivals Chelsea. Going into the game, Chelsea were the favourites. However, 2 goals from the captain Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang helped the Gunners win the FA Cup. Incredibly, Arsenal won the FA Cup, something that no one thought was possible when Arteta was first appointed. Not just that, in Arteta's first season, there were signs of a style of play happening and changes and improvements compared to Unai Emery. Although the style of play was not the finished article, the signs were still positive, especially in Arteta's first season. The club atmosphere changed as well, as back in December, it was completely toxic, to now, going into the summer 2020 transfer window, many of the fans were optimistic and excited about what the future held. In the summer, Arteta was given money to spend, as the club spent 85 million euros, bringing in players like Willian, Gabriel, and the star signing Thomas Partey. The club also got rid of a few deadwood players such as Socrates, Mustafi, and Mkhitaryan. A lot of Arsenal fans are confident going into the new season, as they believe this was finally the season they get back into the top 4. However, they were very wrong. A few months into the season, Arsenal went on an incredible losing streak, losing every match day after match day. Many of the new signings were struggling to settle in, especially Willian being labelled as one of the worst signings of the season. The football was not improving, and as a matter of fact, the team was going backwards compared to last season. Every week, Arsenal kept slipping further and further down the table, with more fans slowly turning on Arteta after every loss. It was December of 2020, and Arsenal were sitting 15th in the table. They were 4 points above the relegation zone and 12 points behind 4th place. Not just that, star player Mesut Ozil was completely frozen out of the team by Arteta due to his commitment to the club not being at 100%. At this point, the atmosphere around the club became toxic again. Fans were demanding for Arteta to be sacked, with the club reaching an all-time low. However, the board stuck with Arteta, and Arsenal managed to pick up a bit of form to go on a little run of wins, including slapping London rivals Chelsea 3-1. The January window came and Mesut Ozil was let go. With 6 months remaining on his contract, the club terminated his contract and he was let go and joined Fenerbahce. One of Arsenal's star players, he was supposed to lead them to glory, gone with an absolute pity of an exit. With Ozil gone, Arsenal needed a new playmaker, which they got in talented Norwegian wonderkid Martin Odegaard. Arsenal continued their inconsistent form and the top 4 looked out of reach. However, there was still hope in the Europa League as Arsenal had made it all the way to the semi-finals, with their opponent being Villarreal. Unai Emery was the manager of Villarreal, and Villarreal picked up a 2-1 win in Spain before scraping a 0-0 at the Emirates to knock out Arsenal from the Europa League. That's it. Champions League dreams once again shattered, and the Arteta out protests began again. The season ended and Arsenal finished 8th once again, no improvement from last season. However, this time, they missed out on Europe completely. At this point, the majority of Arsenal fans wanted Arteta gone before the summer transfer window. However, the board continued to back Arteta and gave him big money to spend in the summer. Arsenal were one of the highest spenders in the Premier League in the summer window, spending 150 million on 5 new additions to the team. Tomiyasu, Ben White, Aaron Ramsdale, Nuno Tavares, and Lokonga. On top of this, Martin Odegaard was also signed on a permanent deal. With Arsenal being one of the top spenders in the Premier League that window, you would think they would start the season on fire. Well, no. Arsenal lost all 3 of their first opening games. 2-0 to newly promoted Brentford, 2-0 to Chelsea, and 5-0 to Manchester City. After 3 games, Arsenal were sitting rock bottom of the league. 0 points, 0 goals scored, and 9 conceded. Once again, fans were demanding for Arteta to get sacked. However, Arsenal director Josh Kroenke still had faith and kept backing Arteta. This was probably the biggest turning point for the Gunners. Arteta had to change something, which he did. He started putting more trust in the younger players like Martinelli, Smith Rowe, and Bukayo Saka. Aaron Ramsdale also replaced Bernd Leno in goal, who was Arsenal's first choice keeper for 3 years. The gamble paid off. After this horrible run, Arsenal went on a bit of a positive run and win their next 3 games, and even dismantling their biggest rivals Tottenham in the North London derby. Arsenal would continue this great run as they were a joy to watch, dismantling teams for fun and dominating in almost every game played. Come January, Arsenal found themselves in the top 4, ahead of rivals Tottenham on goal difference. January was quiet in terms of incomings for the Arsenal. However, Arsenal terminated the contract of star striker and captain Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Aubameyang was frozen out of the team due to lack of discipline, which eventually led to his exit. Arsenal would continue their great form, keeping them in the top 4, and with 3 games left to go, Arsenal were 4th, 4 points ahead of rivals Tottenham. If Arsenal won their next game against Tottenham, they would go 7 points clear and would officially qualify for the Champions League. Job done, right? Easy job, right? Not exactly. Arsenal went to Tottenham and lost 3-0. However, they were still 1 point behind. All they had to do was win their final 2 games and they would qualify for the Champions League. But they didn't do that. Arsenal played their second last game of the season at Newcastle, which they ended up losing 2-0. At this point, Tottenham overtook them in the table. The season ended and Arsenal missed out on the Champions League as Tottenham took 4th spot and Arsenal finished 5th. The season ended in disappointment after just about missing out. However, this time, instead of screaming Arteta out, a bit of the fans, actually most of the fans, were pretty optimistic and looking forward to the next season. The 22-23 summer window, Arsenal signed Gabriel Jesus and Alexander Zinchenko as their main signings. They mainly cleared out a lot of deadwood players and the squad was left with players that Arteta fully trusted. Arsenal started the season on absolute fire. At 6 games into the season, they were top of the league with 5 wins and only 1 loss. They were playing some absolutely scintillating football, completely dominating teams. Going into the season, the main objective for Arsenal fans was just to get top 4. However, that was quickly shattered. Halfway into the season, Arsenal found themselves top of the league, 5 points clear of Manchester City. Arsenal were one of the best teams to watch in the league, completely dominating and outplaying their opponents. Bukayo Saka, Martin Odegaard, and Thomas Partey were all crucial players for this run. They had one of the best defensive records in the league, mainly down to the partnership of Saliba and Gabriel. And they had the second best goals scored record. At this point, top 4 was basically secured for the Arsenal. However, the fans wanted something bigger. They were dreaming of the Premier League title itself. Arsenal continued winning and they would not stop, dismantling every team that came in their way. Come match day 29, and Arsenal were 7 points clear of Manchester City. With 9 more games left to go in the season, there was no way Arsenal would let a 7-point gap slip. Well, you're wrong. The bottle job officially began. They bottled a 2-0 lead against Liverpool and drew 2-2. Then they did the same thing against West Ham. Then they drew 3-3 to 20th position Southampton. At this point, Man City had closed the gap and were 5 points behind Arsenal with 2 games left in hand. Arsenal's next game? Yup, Manchester City at the Etihad. Arsenal went to Manchester and this game was not even a competition. Man City absolutely wiped the floor with Arsenal and trashed them 4-1, with Arsenal not even being able to put up a fight, completely crushing Arsenal's morale and fighting spirit. After this defeat, Arsenal would go on to lose 2 of their final 5 games, losing out on the league title and seeing Manchester City crowned as the champions. One of Arsenal's best ever seasons in a very, very long time had a sad ending. At the end, it was clear to see that Arteta's young squad was simply just not ready to win the Premier League yet. However, it had won the hearts of many football fans around the world. Arsenal went into the summer transfer window and strengthened the squad even further, bringing in Jurrien Timber, Kai Havertz, David Raya, and broke the bank to sign Declan Rice. As of recording, Arsenal are in another title race and are top of the league once again, ahead of Liverpool this time on goal difference. They're also in the Champions League quarterfinals against Bayern Munich. It's crazy how almost 2 to 3 years ago that every single Arsenal fan around the world was screaming for Arteta to get sacked. There seemed to be no rebuild happening at the club and the process wasn't processing. However, credit has to go to Josh Kroenke and the Arsenal board for sticking by Arteta through the dark days, and now their trust is finally paying off. The team keeps improving every season and I think it's only a matter of time before we see Arsenal win the Premier League again. Shows you what happens if the club trusts the manager and backs him completely. Not gonna lie, making this video was actually a huge pain for me because I am a Tottenham fan and constantly while I was writing the script and recording the video, I kept questioning myself, why am I doing this? But I'm doing it for y'all, so you're welcome. Anyways, that is a wrap for this video for today. What do you guys think about Mikel Arteta and the job he's done at Arsenal? And do you guys think Arsenal can win the league this season? Let me know in the comments. If you guys have any other video ideas for me that you want me to record or make, let me know in the comments. I'm always checking them out. But that is all for now. Hit like, hit subscribe, help the channel grow, help your boy out. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching and take care for now.